And welcome in, everyone, to the George Mason Basketball Coaches Show with head coach Tony Skinn. I'm Bill Rowland. We're here at Commonwealth Brewing Company in Fairfax. We appreciate everybody coming out tonight. We're going to get to a lot of different topics this evening. We have special guest Darius Maddox with us as well. We'll check in with him later on in the show, but Coach Skinn is here, so we might as well jump right into it. And Tony, I think at this point, 3-3 on the season, a lot of people may look at it and say, wow, it's not the best start, but you guys are just a couple possessions away from being 5-1.
Yeah, no, it's the tough thing about putting together a pretty good schedule. When you look at our KenPom ratings, even though we have 3 losses, we're still in the top 100 as far as nationally is concerned. And so that kind of lets you know the opponents that we're playing. It's the gift and the curse of scheduling like that, because if you don't take care of business, you can't get a few losses that you don't want. But again, as you look at it, we're 2 possessions away from being, potentially 5-1. And so there's some good there. We just got to be able to find the wrinkles and, try to get better as we get closer to conference play.
Couple of the 1-point losses, Central Michigan at home. Kind of a weird play. You block a shot, and it just happens to go out to one of their guys, and he throws it up and hits a 3 late in that one. And then just a war with East Carolina, double overtime game that you end up losing by 1. A couple of teachable moments in those games, though, that I'm sure when you look back on film, you do realize just how close you were.
Yeah, thanks for poking at my trauma. I'm still trying to get over those losses. Again, I've been using a baseball terminology. In those 2 games, it's almost as if, we had a chance to be at bat 30, 35 times. And if we just bunt the ball just one time, we win both those games. You're up 2 possessions, you're up by 4 with 30 seconds against Central Michigan. You draw up everything that you could potentially draw up to get the ball in bounds. There's 1 or 2 guys open. Certain things happen in that moment. And again, they had to hit 2 30-footers to win the game. And so the gods of basketball certainly wasn't in our favor in that game. And then you go on the road against what I think is going to be a really, really good American Conference team in East Carolina. And you have the same opportunity, whether it's an offensive rebound, whether it's not fouling, whether it's not turning the basketball over. You have so many opportunities in 50 minutes, and the ball doesn't roll your way. And so for me as a coach, as a staff, it's about understanding the intangibles that are there and trying to fix it.
You talked about earlier in the year having depth for your team, and that could be a curse and a blessing because you got so many guys that are talented, but that means so many guys want minutes, want shots, want to know what the role is. Do you feel now 6 games in that you're starting to find kind of where you want to be?
Yeah, I think so. I was really, really excited when we put together this team. Shout out to my staff who did an unbelievable job on the recruiting trail. And I thought from August on, I thought that we were about 12, 13 deep. The gift and the curse there is that it's hard to play 12 guys. Right. It's hard to play 11 guys. And so as you're trying to find your rotation, it's not very nice as a coach to have to go back and forth with certain guys. And that's what these games are for. We're seeing who's tough in certain moments. We're seeing who has the experience and the inexperience in certain moments. And, certainly we're starting to shrink that number down to about 8 or 9, which makes life a lot easier in those moments.
Let's talk about a guy who stepped up here recently in the Coppin State game. You had Zach Anderson had to start for you guys because Jared Billups is in concussion protocol, and he stepped up in a big way. 2nd straight home game, 5 threes in the first half. He ends up hitting 7 of 9 from behind the arc, finished with 21 points in that ball game, which is the most he's had in a Mason uniform. That's stepping up in a big way. Your numbers called, you got to respond.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's when you have a guy like that, we struggled with 3-point shooting last year. We were one of the worst teams in our league. And so for us in the offseason, it was very, very important that we get a guy that can, do what Zach Anderson does. 46% from the field. 46% from the 3 at Florida Gulf Coast. And I mean, yesterday he shot the zone out. I was a little worried about their zone because they sit in it for about 35 minutes. We ended up getting them out of it in less than 15 minutes due to Zach Anderson. And so what he's kind of been doing to prepare himself is what showed last night. But got to credit his teammates, got to credit Woody Newton, who started alongside Zach. And if you watch that game, Woody Newton made a couple of extra passes when he was open, and it really got Zach going. And that's the type of potential that we have with multiple guys. Obviously, Darius Maddox is who he is, but if we can find certain guys that can space the floor with the way we play, our flow is going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously Darius Maddox is one of the premier shooters in the A10, and it's interesting. And we'll talk to him about it. A lot of times I'll look up and I'm like, I'm not sure Darius has had a great, and I'm like, oh no, he had 20. He's done that 3 times. So you're like, oh no, Darius had 20.
Yeah.
You didn't need his scoring last night, but guys, as you mentioned, did a good job when Zach got hot, hitting him on a trail 3, making that one more pass rather than taking, maybe a tougher shot.
Yeah.
That has to make you happy as a coach that everybody's kind of like, okay, we're buying in a little bit. We understand. Find the guy with the hot hand no matter who it is.
Yeah, no, we had 16 assists, only 10 turnovers. We only had 7 with 3 minutes to go. And those are the departments that we've got to get better at. Obviously, the non-negotiable that everyone knows, we've got to box out. We've got to do a better job on the glass. But we've also got to share the basketball and take care of the basketball. And I thought we did that last night on a night when Darius Maddox, again, like you said, he's made me rethink the way that I coach, because there's certain moments in the game where I'm looking at the stat sheet, or I'm looking at the game, and I'm like, what the hell is Darius Maddox doing? Why is he taking that tough 2? And then you look at the stat sheet,
right,
and he's 6 for 9. And so you look at that, and you just think about how much of value that you have in a Darius Maddox, and if you can add a guy like Zach Anderson who can make shots for you, it makes my job a lot easier.
In a game like that, where you guys have such a working margin in the game, easier to then try to find the combinations that you're looking for, maybe experiment a little bit?
Believe it or not, and again, I think I say this for a lot of coaches in the country, we're the greediest people on earth. You're up by 40 and you're trying to see 50. It's almost impossible. But you're also just trying to make sure, regardless of what happens through the course of a 30, 40-point lead, your guys are doing the right things, because it shouldn't matter the moment in the game, because what you do down 2 is the same thing you're going to do up 40. And so just having that understanding is really what it comes down to in a game like last night.
At least you hope that's the situation, right? Down 2 or up 40.
Exactly.
It all works out the same way. It's head coach Tony Skinn here with us. We're going to talk to Darius Maddox, the senior guard for the Patriots, coming up in just a bit. Want to remind everyone, though, it's not too late to join us out at Eagle Bank Arena this season. You can get special savings on a 3-game mini plan or our A10 5-game mini plan. Prorated season tickets are also still available, including prime seating at center court. All ticket information can be found under the ticket section of GoMason.com, or call the ticket office at 703-993-3270. The Patriots are on the road next week at James Madison. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show with head coach Tony Skinn. But coming up next, the senior guard of your Patriots, Darius Maddox, will join us here on the show. Welcome back to the George Mason Basketball Coaches Show with Tony Skinn. I'm Bill Rowland. We'll talk to Coach Skinn here coming up in just a little bit. Right now, it's my pleasure to be joined by the senior guard of the Patriots, Darius Maddox. Welcome. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Darius comes in averaging 16.8 points a game, and that's where I want to start with you. Is I mentioned it in the first segment with Coach Skinn. A lot of times as I'm doing the game, I'll look up and I'll be like, I'm not sure Darius is having a great game. And like Tony said, then you look at the stat sheet, all of a sudden, you got 20. You've got 20. 3 times this year already with 20 points. Is that just kind of part of it, where it's kind of that just quietly go about doing the business? You're not flashy, but every time you finish the game, you look up and you're putting up great numbers.
Right. Obviously, it's not really, the goal. But really what Coach Skinn is preaching to me is to go about it and not rush anything. Take what the defense gives you and not really try to force anything. So it's best for me when I'm just, playing naturally and playing free. And then, you look up and maybe I have 20, maybe I have, whatever case may be. But, for me, it's more about, winning, as a team and really getting guys to jail.
You obviously grew up here in the area, went to Virginia Tech for your first few years, and then came home. What's that experience been like to get back here, where a little bit easier for friends and family to come see you? A little bit shorter drive from Bowie over to Fairfax than it is down to Blacksburg.
Yeah, right.
So what's that been like the last couple of years to have that support system and people there in the arena?
It's been great for me, honestly. And that's a big reason why I did come back for another year. Like you said, just having friends and family, being able to come. But then honestly being able to go home, after tough games, after tough weeks, because every night is not going to be a 20-point night. Every night is not going to be a 30, 40-point win. So just being able to have a support system that's really right there that I can go and talk to and, get me through good and bad is perfect.
I know you're one of the leaders on this team as a senior. You guys had a couple of tough 1-point losses again,
Yeah.
the Central Michigan loss and the double overtime. I mean, battle that was in East Carolina. Do you find yourself with other, seniors on the team, leaders on the team, kind of gathering up the other guys and saying, hey, you know what, we're okay. We haven't even hit the A-10 schedule yet. This is going to be all right. We're fine.
Most definitely. And I feel like with me, along with some of the other guys that, been at, higher levels and played, a decent amount of ball games that, I'm kind of glad that we have these problems now as opposed to A-10 tournament or, right in the middle of, A-10 play when it's real, when you need wins. So I feel like a lot of these tough losses, even though they suck, it's getting us ready for, the real and then what's needed to come. And that's really like the little things like boxing out, free throws, getting a defensive stop, making an extra pass. So I'm glad it's, 1 point instead of, we're getting blown out and we have no idea what to do. So, yeah.
You and I were talking a little bit before the show. It's interesting. A lot of guys, when they come on the show and we talk to them, they got a whole playlist. They tell me exactly what they're listening pregame. You said you're not much of a music guy before the game. How do you get yourself prepared when it's go time?
Honestly, it might be a little strange, but I know at times kind of my demeanor, how I go about really life, I'm kind of a little lackadaisical and kind of go with the flow. So at times, like I'll pinch myself, I'll kind of bite my teeth a little bit, you know what I mean, just to get myself prepared, as opposed to somebody hitting me and then I'm waking up. But along with that, and moving off the vibes of the other guys, during the season, we're playing music and, guys getting loud, guys getting rowdy, so it's good for me.
So off the court, when you are listening to stuff, give me some idea, what are some of your favorite bands, what music are you going to?
I'm not usually your typical answer. Obviously, it's rap music, and but I'm really into like alternative music and kind of softer and older rock music as well, along with R&B and certain stuff like that.
You're talking some old Motown. Is there an older Motown group that or just all of it in general, that whole kind of era?
It's a lot, man. Individually, I like Marvin Gaye.
Sure.
Who else you got? Temptations. You got the Ozzy Brothers. It's a number of things. Then we can go rock with. AC/DC, Metallica's, it's just a lot of good music out there. And I feel like, just to put yourself in a box to listen to this or, just that is kind of, it's a little plain. So I like to switch it up a lot.
And there's a lot of that going on anyway with, people doing country music coming from rap or crossover stuff. So not that unusual anymore.
Yeah.
Growing up locally, obviously have a pretty big family, siblings, everything else.
Yeah.
We were talking beforehand. You guys, not necessarily competing athletically, but sometimes when everybody gets together, especially when you were younger, the board games, the card games can get a little intense.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I mentioned to you about just trouble, playing, the dice. And,
double dice game.
Yeah, going hard, and Uno as well. And I feel like it's more fun in my household other than competing, like feeling some type of way if you win or lose. So it's really just fun and competing. I feel like that's what makes it. And
are you as lackadaisical when you're playing trouble? And you're getting intense and, all right, I got the guy, you got to go back to start. What's it? I mean, who's talking the most smack in those games? You,
probably
your older sister, younger sister? Who's talking the most?
The youngest he talks a lot.
Always.
Sometimes it's too much. Like, all right, it's getting personal. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's all fun. It's all fun again.
Last year, obviously the goal after this is to continue the basketball career. Down the road, though, when it's all said and done, basketball career is over, what is it that Darius Maddox is looking to do?
For right now, it's really, I have a bunch of different options just in terms of, the sports analyst world, just in terms of the people that I've met and connected with actually here. So, honestly, it's just me just really, going with the flow as of right now because, hopefully, God willing, I have, a lot more time playing basketball. And then when that gets to itself, I know I can come back to Mason. I know I can figure out certain areas for myself. So, yeah.
What do you look at, last thing before we let you go, you've played last year with this team. Obviously, you've seen the makeup. Even though it's a 3-3 record, you feel like sky's the limit, right, for this team? You feel like you can compete in the A-10, get to an NCAA tournament?
Well, no question. And I feel like, more realistically, we can, say terms like sky's the limit and look, totally down the road march. But it really starts with the little things. Like we got game Saturday. We got to come to box out, make the right passes. Just do the little things to put ourselves in good position. So, yeah.
There you go. Darius Maddox, the senior guard for the Patriots. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much. We'll come back here on the show, finish things off with head coach Tony Skinn. Welcome back to the George Mason Basketball Coaches Show. I'm Bill Rohn, along with the head coach of the Patriots, Tony Skinn. Once again, we want to thank Commonwealth Brewing Company for having us out here. Stop by and see them right in downtown Fairfax. Again, we appreciate their hospitality. Coach, we just talked with your senior guard, Darius Maddox. Smooth guy, low-key guy, just keeps everything even keel. A lot of times, guys have to get themselves hyped up, and they have all that energy at the top, and then they kind of lose it throughout the game. He's just as smooth as it is.
Yeah.
You need guys like that, though. You get into a tense situation, everybody's getting wound up. You look over at Darius, and you don't know if it's the first 5 minutes of the game or the last 10 seconds of the game.
Yeah, no, he's definitely Mr. Reliable. You know, he's the one guy that in different moments of the game I can like completely just like scream at. He's also the one guy like he can make a mistake and I can completely just ignore him because I think he understands and he wants this thing just as bad as everyone else that's on the floor. And so that's what 5 years of playing college basketball can do for you. He's Mr. Poise, and it's a big reason why he's off to a really, really good start.
Let's talk about your upcoming schedule here. Obviously, you have a firm coming up on Saturday, and then the Friday after Thanksgiving, the renewal of the rivalry with James Madison. I know you haven't dove into their scout or anything yet because you still have another game before that, but a lot of people that are watching it here or on television are going to remember the old rivalry games with George Mason and James Madison. It goes back into the, even the late 60s. It's been around for a long time, and it kind of went away for a while, but now it's back. Special, your players may not understand the rivalry, but certainly you and your former teammates and a lot of the fans out there understand it.
Yeah, no, it's such an exciting time just because as I put that schedule together, to be honest with you, I didn't want to play James Madison. James Madison has had a really, really good program. Obviously, their former coaches now at Vanderbilt,
right?
And so they're doing something. They're doing something right down there. And so as we put the schedule together, we kind of went back and forth. I didn't want to play them. They didn't want to play us. And then we were finally able to just get on the phone. And as tough as scheduling gets, if you're able to get a good quality game like that, and it's 2 hours away, you've got to put your differences aside and just schedule the game. And that's what we obviously did. It was big time for us back when we were in the CAA, when I was playing, when Coach Lamar was playing. I will say that when we were there, it was a little bit of a lopsided rivalry.
True.
And again, you said it goes back to the 60s. So there's a lot of different people that have seen different, ups and downs of that rivalry. I just remember back when I played, I wasn't as excited to play James Madison just because, as a starter, the game was over after the first half. And I didn't play as much in the second half.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I remember. But obviously, they've done a tremendous job with that program. And, going into Thanksgiving, I'm excited about that game.
Yeah, that's the fun part because it's when I was in school at George Mason, we were on the other side of it. They were kicking our butts every single year, and just give us one win. So you get excited when you got it. So when you guys came along, again, Will Thomas did the game with me the other night, your former teammate, and I was asking him about it. He goes, I don't think I ever lost to James Madison in that. So it goes through ebbs and flows. We all know how that works.
Absolutely.
We talked last time about Halloween, so I want to talk to you this time about Thanksgiving coming up. A little bit of an odd schedule. Sometimes you're on the road for a holiday tournament or whatever. You guys are playing the Friday after Thanksgiving. How are you celebrating with either your family, your team? How are you guys pulling that off?
Yeah, so we're going to have Thanksgiving together as a team. That's the players, our support staff, coaches, our families, our players' families. We're actually going to have Thanksgiving lunch/dinner. Before we take off for James Madison. We're having it on Thursday at 3 o'clock, actually at Chris Durlack's Purple Strategies.
Okay.
And so it's just going to give us a chance to at least have a decent meal before going on the road. When you have games during, the holidays, it's tough to, get these guys a good meal. And so I wanted to do something that gave us a chance to at least celebrate the holiday without forgetting that. But then also, keeping the main thing, which is making sure these guys are getting a good meal and ready to play James Madison on Friday.
It's always good, too. Those are kind of, not that you guys don't do a lot of team bonding anyway, especially if you go on a road trip or whatever. But that's nice. Everybody just kind of be relaxed. You're not in a strange hotel or anything. It's just you're there.
Well, these guys
maybe watch the football games, whatever it is.
Well, these guys are spoiled. When we go out, when we go on the road, we typically take those guys out to eat.
Right.
And so I would say compared to back when I played, these guys are pretty spoiled. So.
You look at, again, playing James Madison coming up. the rivalry. I've had a lot of people talk about how they loved going there when it was a heated rivalry, late 90s, early 2000s, when it seemed like that game and games against North Carolina Wilmington meant everything in the standings. When you played, where were the road trips that you looked forward to because you knew the crowd was going to be hype, and that's always more fun to play in front of a big crowd than not. So where were some of the stadiums that you went to that you're like, oh, I love going there on the road?
That's an easy answer. That's an easy answer. It was VCU.
Okay.
It was VCU and it was UNC Wilmington. I've said it in a few of my press conferences. I wish they would listen to certain people that existed back when VCU was VCU and obviously Mason was Mason, UNC Wilmington was UNC Wilmington, because I really do think, especially in state, it's a different type of game.
Yeah.
Obviously we haven't had the chance to play VCU 2 times a year. We only get a chance to play them 1 time a year. But, that was one of those things where when we were playing VCU, whether they were coming to us or we were going down to there, we knew it was going to be a battle. We knew it was going to be one of those really, really intense games. Somebody might get into a fight. And so I would love for our league to really look at the history of what VCU and what Mason was, because I really do think that from a fan base standpoint, it's something that I think it could electrify the league a little bit better. It's not, certain people sit there and look at scheduling and put it together, and maybe you don't think that George Mason and VCU should be a rivalry, but I think there's a lot of people in this state that would think different.
I think you're right. That's going to do it for us. Coach, thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck with everything coming up. We'll talk to you again coming up real soon. Thanks for everybody coming out here at Commonwealth Brewing Company. This has been the George Mason Basketball Coaches Show with head coach Tony Skinn.